Welcome back to Wishwell Farms, everybody, on this rainy, windy Wednesday. What is the Florida weave system, you may ask? Stay tuned, and I'll explain. We are currently in our grape greenhouse, and boy, they are flowered out nicely. Absolutely loaded. Beautiful. And the plants are currently about 4 to 5 feet tall. And as you can see here, they're flopping over a little bit. We want them to stand straight up and continue growing straight up. And the way we do that is with a string trellis system called the Florida weave. If you look real close, there is currently 3 strings already in place. There's the first one, about 2 feet off the ground. And then about every 6 to 8 inches, we're going to run another string. There's string number 2, there's string number 3, and today we're going to run string number 4 to pull these plants that are hanging over back up into an upright position. So we have 2 rows here that are going to be planted next week for the second crop of grape tomatoes, because we stagger this planting into 2 separate plantings. Once they reach about 2.5 feet tall, the tops of the plants are going to start falling over. And eventually the entire plant would just sprawl over the ground and grow on the ground. We don't want that. We want our grape tomatoes to be up here between waist and head high for easy harvest. We want all of our fruit to be in this area for the employees to harvest quickly and easily. Now that we have our bumblebees in, I'll be putting them in here every 3 days to do some pollinating. Get all these beautiful yellow blossoms to start growing into lovely, sweet grape tomatoes. As you can see right here, some of these side shoots, suckers that have turned into a producing part of the plant, have fallen. Well, actually they were never up in the string, but they have grown horizontally away from the plant, probably 1.5 feet. So having this string up in here allows us to stuff that sucker up in the string, where it will continue to grow on up through the strings and not hang out here and flop onto the ground, where the employees will have to pick the grape tomatoes off of the ground or just above the ground. So we don't want that. So we always stuff these up into the plant so they continue growing up into the strings. As you can see here, we're starting to get some little baby grape tomatoes, about 1/4 of the way sized up. Here at the end of the row, we have a steel T-post. Actually, in this grape greenhouse, it's all steel T-posts from end to end. That's not the way we do it in the field. And out in the open field, we use a steel T-post on each end, and then we use 1x1 oak wooden stakes every 5 feet down the row. But in here, this is kind of more of a permanent structure, obviously, and it's much easier for us to just leave the steel posts in here year-round. Unlike in the field where we have to remove the wooden stakes each season. Okay, let's get started on stringing these. So here's a box of twine. We order about a half dozen boxes a year, and there's probably, I don't know, 5,000 feet of tomato twine in this box. It's just a simple, thin, very strong tomato twine. Now, any kind of twine or string would work. This is just what we use. It's what commercial tomato growers are going to use, because they're going through thousands and thousands of feet, if not miles and miles, of this string. So it's fairly inexpensive, but like I said, you can use any kind of string or twine at your local garden center, or maybe at a TSC or something like that. I'm sure there's baling, even baling twine would work. We've used that before when I first got started. Before I knew what tomato twine was, we just used baling string. So the box has 2 slits in the back to run your belt through. Since I'm not wearing a belt, I just run another piece of string through it, and I will tie this to my belt loops on my pants. There's definitely some benefits to using the Florida weave system on tomatoes. Especially for someone who grows a large quantity of tomatoes. If you just have several plants in your garden, just staking each one up individually to their own wooden stake or T-post is absolutely fine, or tomato cage. But when you got thousands and thousands of plants, no, there's not thousands in here, but you know, I'm gonna have about 400 or 500 in here, and then a couple thousand out in the field. It just makes sense to use the floater weave system, and you'll see why here in a second. How effective it is, how quick and easy it is to keep your plants trellised up. All right, the first step is to determine where you want to start your string. So for me, I'm going to go about 6 inches above my previous string. If you're doing the very first stringing in your garden or out in your field, it's obviously just going to be the height of about 2/3 of the way up your tomato plant. You obviously don't want to go above your tomato plant, because then it does no good. You would have to come back along and stuff your plants into the string. You don't want to do that. And if you go too low, let's pretend this is ground level right here, and this is your newly planted tomato plant, and it's going to start falling over. If you go too low, it's not going to do any good. The tomato plant is still just going to flop right over. So right in the middle of your plant, or maybe 2/3 of the way up your tomato plant, and that's a good place to start. So for this 4th stringing, like I said, we like to go about 6 inches above the crop, or above the previous string. So I'm just going to tie a simple double knot. I wrap around twice, tie a double knot. And if you're right-handed, you're going to want to start on this side of your crop. Now, since I am standing up straight and not bending over doing my very first stringing, I don't need any kind of extension tool. I'll throw a picture up on the screen right now of what it looks like. It's just a simple piece of wood or PVC with a hole in it, and you stick your string through there, and it kind of acts as an extension of your arm. But we don't even use those. It's not really needed. The first stringing, yeah, you got to bend over quite a bit, but after that, it's not really needed. So, all right, we got our knot, we got our string wrapped around the post, we're ready to go. So, if there is crop that is flopping over really bad right now, I like to swoop down underneath it and catch it all. So you can see how this is really leaning right now. And then when I pull that string up, it pulls it right up in straight position. And here comes the rain again. Holy cow, it's a torrential downpour. I'll be back shortly. So here I am at the next post. About 6 inches above the previous string. And I still got it tight with my right hand, right here. Holding it tight, but I'm going to reach around with my left hand and take the tightness and free up my right hand. And then I'm going to take that string, I'm going to back you up a little bit here. Take the string with my right hand and go right around the top of the post. Now I'm wrapped around, and I'll let it go with my left hand, and it's nice and tight. And I just repeat the process all the way down the row. So I have the string tight with my right hand. Sometimes you got to move the crop out of the way so don't wrap it around the post and rip off leaves and branches. I'm going to take my left hand, take the string from my right hand and hold it tight. Now my right hand's freed up. Take that string with my right hand and go right around the top of the post. And there it is. Now I let it go with my left hand and hold it again with my right. And I'm ready to keep repeating that process all the way down. All right, I'm at the next post. Holding it tight with my right hand, reaching around and grabbing it with my left hand. Now I can let go with my right hand and take that loose slack up over the top of the post. Now she's wrapped. I'll let go with my left hand to keep it tight with my right, ready to continue on down the row. Woo! That scared me. The fan jet just turned on. My gosh. I thought I was getting attacked by something. Once you get the hang of this, you can go really quick. Now, if you look down through there, you can see how the crop is all pulled up nice and snug, straight up and down. Hardly anything flopping out over the strings. Back here in the back of the greenhouse, on these 2 rows, about 20 feet of it on each side, are yellow grape tomatoes. I've never planted yellow grape tomatoes in here. I have planted them in my other greenhouse before, about 12 or 15 years ago, but I have not ever done them in the coconut core grow bags. So it'll be interesting to see how they turn out. But obviously they are a little later than the red ones because these are all still in the flower stage. Oh, there's a couple little itty baby ones about the size of peas. So these unfortunately are indeterminates, so they're growing really fast. These 7-foot T-posts, they're going to be up there in about a week. So eventually they're going to outgrow the T-post and flop over, and at that point we'll just snip them and not let them continue growing all the way to the floor, because we only need these through July. And if you're wondering why I only need them through July, that's when our sales really take a dive on grape tomatoes, because anyone can grow grape tomatoes in their gardens, on their front porches. They can probably even grow them indoors under grow lights. So by then, everybody at the farmers markets has cherry tomatoes, grape tomatoes. Home gardeners have their own produce coming out of their gardens, and ours kind of drop in demand quite a bit. So we only pick these through July, maybe even middle of July. And then we call it quits in here, and then we move on out into the field and start picking our field tomatoes. And that's about the time watermelons and cantaloupes come on. So we really start concentrating on some of the other outdoor crops after these have kind of ran their course. All right, I have my 4 rows all trellised up. The Florida Weave system works great for us. I highly recommend using it even in your garden. Now, there's not really any drawbacks that I can think of to using it other than having to buy string and maybe some extra wooden stakes or steel T-post. But the benefits far outweigh the cost and the trouble of doing this. So if you're considering a new way to keep your tomato plants up off the ground, I would recommend the Florida Weave system. It's so simple. I'm sure there's many other tutorials online on how to do it. It's kind of hard to show the minute details of the process when you're doing the filming yourself without someone else holding the camera. But hopefully you got the gist of it and can get that figured out and can implement that in your own garden. Well, that's it for today, guys. Short and sweet. We're only about a week or 10 days away from planting sweet corn. We're finally going to get out of the greenhouses and out into the fields and do some real farm work, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you again real soon down on the farm.